Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Derwin, and I'm here with Shane Buell. In today's video, we're going to be going over the many fires that are going on in the US right now, all the way from California, Utah, Oregon, and even in Alaska. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed, please do so before you leave and like, comment, and share this video so we can get the word out. So, thank you, Shane, for pulling up all this information. So we got some damage information from the Oregon fire. So let's start there if we can.
All right. There are lots of fires. I just want to say there's lots of fires everywhere, and I'm only going to cover the ones that impacted homes or structures or have some sort of other anomaly. In the most anomalous fire that we've seen so far this month, in my opinion, was the Oregon Rowena fire along the Columbia River, just west of the Dalles. And there were over 4 dozen homes that were impacted in this fire. And it was allegedly caused by a train. Allegedly, a Union Pacific train sparked as it went past, and the spark ignited the brush. And that's what allegedly started the Rowena fire just west of the Dales. Now, some of the anomalous fire behavior that I've seen is in some of the damage indicators like we see with this truck. So the truck appears to be missing all of its windows, but when we zoom in here, actually, that's so the story behind this truck is that it's a 2007 Ford Ranger that was used by Jason Deach and Mike Griswold to escape the Eaton fire in Los Angeles, and it was destroyed in the Rowena fire. But when we zoom in near the dash, where you can see on the where the steering wheel would have been, there looks like some sort of melted substance all over the steering column. We often see this, and I typically do look at steering columns to see if there is melted glass on them. And there is a melted substance on this that looks like it could be glass. Now it's in the shadow. I wish there was more sun shining on it, but this is likely a glass windshield that's probably tempered and also contains a laminate of plastic so that when the windshields shatter, they don't break into small pieces and go flying everywhere. So it does look like the glass melted in this fire, which would indicate a temperature of 2,500 plus degrees Fahrenheit. Also, the home damage looks like only stone and steel had really survived this. And when we look at this home from the front in the daytime, you can see that a lot of it has been reduced to white ashes as if it had bypassed the combustion process. This looks like evidence of calcination, which occurs at a higher heat than combustion. And
And then
the
also
trees in
the
the
trees.
background,
Yeah, I was just going to say
yeah,
that.
yeah, the trees in the background are mostly intact. You can see some scorching on some trees, but it's not enough to tell which direction the fire came from and which way it went. So it's really hard to tell. It looked like it was mostly a house fire that affected some trees. All right, and I think that's all I have for the Dalles, Oregon Rowena fire. And now the next thing I want to show is the Apple Valley Ranch fire. This was in San Bernardino County, and it actually burned into some of the area where there was homes. There was about 3 dozen homes that were impacted here in Apple Valley. And one of the images I have shows a school bus on fire in the background, but in the foreground, there appears to have been a structure there that's been reduced into nothing but a very small pile of white ash. Again, looks like evidence of calcination. I also have some video from the Apple fire that I want to show. Now, this tank, I'm curious if from our viewers if they know whether this is a metal tank or a plastic tank, which will be relevant here in the second because of the way that it burns. When it cut the next scene, I want you to look at the fire behavior around that tank. It looks like it has a bunch of strange little streamers of plasma-like energy wrapping around it. And coming off the top looks like combustive flame, but wrapping around that tank looks like some sort of plasma streamers, as if
Yeah, it looks like
it's
those.
plasma coming out of a plasma globe.
Yeah, like that globe, and it has that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
that's
looks very
wild.
strange. And then the firefighter steps in the way so that you can't see it. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But then here it looks like normal combustive flames coming off of this tank. So it kind of leads me to believe that it might be plastic, but those plasma streamers were weird. Now look at this bent pipe here that looks like it has an envelope of plasma around it. I'm pretty sure that's a metal pipe that's bent there, but it's coated with like a layer of fire. Very strange. Now here we have what looks like dirt with no fuel in it, yet we have melted aluminum near these cars. So you can see this dirt looks like it didn't really have much, if any, grass in it at all, yet there's melted aluminum right there with no fuel under it to keep it hot. So what actually was hot enough to burn that aluminum? Something anomalous.
You think maybe that was a mobile home? Kind of made me think it was maybe a mobile home in Apple Valley.
It looked like one of those manufactured homes, kind of, or it could have been a double wide mobile home, actually. Yeah,
Okay,
it didn't look like the home itself was of superior construction, but what really stuck out to me was that tank to the left of the home.
right. Because that's something we see if you're a little bit newer. Often mobile parks are destroyed. Seems to be very common.
That is very
Okay.
common, and we will see some more of that again here in a little bit. All right, the next fire that I want to talk about is the Utah Forsyth fire. And this fire actually started just south of Pine Valley, and it creeps north and east, and it affected the south and eastern portions of Pine Valley. This fire was almost 10,000 acres, and it actually did impact, I think, over 3 dozen homes. And we do have some images. This image is of the fire behavior, which again appears on this image to be a little bit of a purple or a maroon color. I don't know if that's actually the true color of the fire or if that's just the way it shows up in images. I do believe this could possibly be due to overexposure of the camera. Okay, so this occurred in Pine Valley at the Dixie National Forest. And we can see that the ground here is burned, but it didn't reach very far up into the trees. These are pine trees, so the needles, if any of the needles catch, they should catch the rest of the needles. However, it only looks like it burned a few feet off the ground. Now, the Pine Valley Forsyth fire was claimed to have been started by lightning damage, and they used this tree as evidence of the start of the fire. They claimed that this is the tree that was struck by lightning and started the fire. Now, I shared this image with Robert Brame, the forensic arborist, who had already seen this image, and he says it doesn't look like lightning because the top of the tree is still intact. You know, lightning will hit the higher parts of the tree first and then channel its way down. And this tree looks like it's only damaged at near the ground level. Plus, it looks like it burned from the inside out, which is another pattern that we've seen in a lot of these fires. All right, speaking of trees, we have a fence line here with some trees behind it. These, again, are pine trees that are only burned a couple feet off the ground. But what's really anomalous to me are the fence posts. So at the far right near the road, you can see a fence post that's almost hollowed out. I should have zoomed in on this so you could see it better. But where it was mounted, you know, the cross beams were mounted, it completely burned a hole through that post. Also, you can see the ends of the horizontal beams are burned, but not the middles. And if you look at the vertical posts in the foreground, you can see that they seem to only be burned where the fasteners were at. All right, and then this is another home in Pine Valley, Utah, that looks to have been reduced to basically only the steel and stone structures. And the trees are still around. Some of the trees were burnt, but you can see this tree on the left that's practically overhanging the home is actually still intact. So why did that tree not burn? All right, and I think those are all the images I have from the Pine Valley, Utah Forsyth fire. So now we're going to go to New Mexico. So there was a fire that started just south of Albuquerque in a place called Los Lunas in New Mexico. And this fire was allegedly started by a cigarette that was thrown out of the window. And as you can see, it actually burned along the river here, just east of Los Lunas, and it impacted a community on the Valencia side of the river. There are over a dozen homes that were impacted here. And I think I do have a video that we can show of one family that lost one of those homes.
Fire from Saturday destroyed at least 12 homes.
5-10 minutes later, we come back, we see flames and everything was on fire.
Eli Ortega and his mother lost their home Saturday within a matter of minutes. Then Sunday, the Cotton 2 fire prompting more evacuations across the village of Los Lunas.
What happened to me? All my stuff and everything that I owned was missing and burned down, and I felt bad for everybody that went through it.
All right. So that family was actually on the other side of the river. So this is the Desert Willow complex fire, which actually consists of two fires, which started out as the Cotton Fire and then the Cotton 2 fire. So the family that we just saw lost their home in the first fire, and then the second fire spread across the river to the other neighborhood. We have some images of this where you see mostly just homes burning, but not the trees. So it doesn't look like a forest fire. It looks more like a house fire. Let's see here. And then here's another home that has pretty much already finished burning into the ground, yet the trees have not yet ignited. It looks like every tree around this home still has its leaves. And to me, that's very anomalous. Why would the flames not have also caught the leaves on fire? All right, so now we have a home in Los Lunas, and this may be the home that we saw in the video. However, what really sticks out to me is the beams under the floorboards. These are steel beams that are warped and bent like that. And in order to soften steel like that, we're talking temperatures of 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
And then also we
Here's
would
another.
think we'd see like appliances, metal appliances left. Typically that's what we would see, but didn't look like I didn't see any. Let me see. I didn't see many
Well,
appliances.
that may be like a washer in the background. It's hard to tell. Some shells of appliances did survive, but they are few and far between. You would expect to see more appliances, and especially more sinks and toilets and things like that. We
All
also don't
right.
see any porcelain.
We'll
Yeah,
never see a sink or a
right.
toilet.
Yeah. And porcelain breaks down at about twice the temperature that steel does. So that would indicate a very high temperature. All right, and then here's another home in Los Lunas, and you can see that basically the only thing that appears damaged is the home itself. The trees in the background look fine, and even the blue items on the left and right both also look okay as well. All right, so now the next fire that I want to go to is the Trout fire in Grant County, New Mexico. Now, this fire was very large. It was over 47,000 acres, and it did spread east to Highway 35, where it also impacted about another dozen homes. And I do have, I think, yeah, so we don't have any images of these. I stayed up looking for images of this. There's only about a dozen homes impacted, and I couldn't find any images of these yet.
But something I
So,
I think is significant about that one is the fires tend to be where the river is, right? They tend to have
yeah.
been like by water, bodies of water, and that's something we've seen. The first time I saw that was in Kula in Maui. So the morning fire, it started at the bottom of a gulch and then kind of spread from there. And I've also seen that in Malibu, the Palisades area, the canyon, the bottom of the canyon seems to be the source or where it starts. And we're thinking because there's probably water either there or underground, if you think about where lightning or where electricity would be attracted to, it would be, metals, water. And so we're kind of
Conductive
thinking that
materials.
is, yeah, that's kind of the attractor there, right? The creek, the
Yeah.
river, the lake seems to be
Yeah.
bringing those
Electricity
things.
always tries to find a pathway to the ground. And so it takes the least resistance pathway to the ground. And it'll do that through the most conductive pathways. So through power lines, through, any metal that goes into the ground and any water, so like groundwater and trees that are water loving are going to be more conductive. And so it'll take those
Yeah.
pathways.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to go to the fires in Alaska. And I got some information from the Alaska DNR Division of Forestry and Fire Protection, where they show that it looks like at least five, or at least this is the first half of their post, and it shows 5 lightning bolts that struck 4 creeks. So we have 4 separate creeks that were struck by lightning bolts. And we also have another fire that was also created by lightning, allegedly. And then the Alaska DNR post goes on to show 7 more lightning bolts that all struck creeks, lakes, and rivers of all places. Now, the fact that lightning is striking water is not unusual, but it is slightly unusual when it's near higher objects. So these are in river valleys and lakes in the mountains where, there's a valley and you've got peaks on either side with trees and whatnot. those should have been targets of lightning, but for some reason the water or nearby the water is what's actually getting struck. So
And
I don't know.
I'll link the video that we launched with Robert Brame, and he's the forensic arborist that we get a lot of advice from. And he does point out that he goes to these fires. He's been to many, and he says that these one creek was completely void of aquatic life. There were no fish, no aquatic insects. So that makes me think there was some kind of electrical event, right? Because that would cause the life to die, and just
That's
trying to make
definitely
sense
one
of it.
explanation, and in my opinion, the most plausible.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, of the fires in Alaska, several are actually around the Fairbanks area. So, this is within, about a half hour or so of Fairbanks, and we've got 7 fires just in this image. And I'm going to go through some of these just very quickly. So, just north of Fairbanks, we have the Himalaya Road fire, which is at 6 days, it was 0% contained. And it also did cross the road, but it did so right between the houses. So, you can see it says zero population within the fire perimeter, but you can see just how close it actually got to the homes. Now, I don't know if this was because of the firefighters or if it just was the fire behavior itself, but it looks like we had a really close call there, but still no structures yet are impacted in Alaska, although many are threatened. The other fire north of Fairbanks is called the Aggie Creek Fire, which is still 0% contained after 5 days. And then we also have to the southwest of Fairbanks, we have the Bonanza Creek Fire, which is 0% contained after 6 days. And then we have the Gold Stream Creek Fire just west of Fairbanks, which is not contained after 5 days. But also in Western Australia, we have several fires as well. One that really stuck out to me was this one called the North South Fire in Western Australia. And this one
Alaska.
is or Alaska, yes. This is in Alaska, and this is an example of a river that was actually struck by 2 lightning bolts. So this was 2 fires that burned together along the same river, and both of which were allegedly caused by lightning.
And I also want
Also
to
in
add the reason that the Fairbanks fires were brought to my attention. I got an email, and one of our subscribers was visiting, and he said the temperatures were not high. They were like in the 50s. Also, a lot of the snow and ice was melting, so it was definitely not dry. And he says that fires in Alaska are common, just not the temperature, the moisture, and the fact that there's still snow. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to point that out.
Yeah, this is springtime in Alaska. So not only is it their rainy season, but the glaciers are melting as well. And so that's contributing to a lot of extra water, and it's very lush and green and wet in Australia right now, or in Alaska right now. Yeah. Okay, so in Western Australia, I actually did find several more fires that just happen to be in or along creeks, and many of these were allegedly caused by lightning. But the one that really stuck out to me the most is called the Nalchina Glacier Fire, and this is a fire that's at the foot of a glacier. And so I was talking about the snow melt and the ice melt that's going on in Alaska right now. And we see right here at the foothills where this drain or meltwater of the glacier goes to, in the low-lying areas where the water is collecting, is where we have this Nalchina Glacier Fire. So it should be very wet, very green there, and it would be a very unlikely place to have a fire at this time. But yeah, so the glacier is at the bottom of the screen there, and you can see the meltwater running north towards where the fire is. And you can guarantee that that area should be very wet and swampy. So the fact that it's on fire seems very anomalous to me. The
And
only
even
thing I can
said,
think of, go ahead.
he even said the temperature was 52 degrees,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Very mild temperatures for fire weather.
that's cold to
Absolutely.
me. 52 is pretty cold. Like I
That's
need a
actually
jacket.
probably that's actually probably very warm for Alaska. But as far as
Right.
fire weather goes, it's actually still very mild.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to. I saw that in the corner, so it did say the temperature.
I forgot what I was going to say. So back to you, Tracy.
Oh, okay. Did we go through all the Alaska fires?
We did. Yeah.
The Nelchina. Okay. Yeah. So it says here temperature 54, tomorrow 52. They didn't have any wind data. And that day 6. And it doesn't look like there's any structures, or doesn't even seem like there's roads, right? So this is
Oh,
way out
well,
there.
Alaska is very rural, and as I looked through the satellite images of all these fires and kind of scrolled around Alaska, I got the impression that it's a very beautiful place and very relatively untouched by humans. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of wilderness in between all of the towns and the roads there, and Alaska is just a very beautiful place.
Yeah, and see here, you can see really clearly how the fires are attracted to the water. The Susalanta, like that's really just hugging the river. I mean, they're all against a river.
Oh
It's
yeah, and so all over the interior lowlands of Alaska, every time there was a fire and I zoomed in, it was near water, and so many of them are named after the creeks that they started at. However, even the ones that don't have the name of creek are near a creek.
yeah, that's just does not does not make sense. And
Right,
it says here abnormally dry, but just from what I'm hearing, like from actual people that were there, it's not dry. It's very green and lush,
right,
and the ground
and I
is
can't help
not.
but yeah, that's true. And I can't help but wonder, like, why is so much of this, like, what allegedly it appears to be swampy land in a lot of areas, these low-lying, very wet areas are burning. And the only thing
Mhm.
I can think of is that maybe there might be some sort of peat moss or something there. But with as wet as it is, you wouldn't think it would burn so well.
Right, and we've seen that in New York, right? The Hamptons, the
Hmm.
ground was literally frozen, and it
Yeah.
was still on fire. So many examples of creek beds, on fire. And
Hmm.
what's really, I guess, good for us to follow Alaska is there's no firefighters. So these fires are going to really just go the way nature, you know, takes its course type of thing. So
I
it'd
think
be
about
interesting to see.
Yeah, I think only about half of these fires have actually reported that they have personnel on the fire. So yeah, about the other half of the fires are unmanned. They're not reported to have any personnel on the fire. So that probably
Right. There's
explains why so many
no
of them are
reason
still at
to,
0%
I would
after
say,
a
because
week.
you'd have to get a plane or a helicopter and drop water. It
Right.
just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to do that in these areas, remote areas. So, was there anything else?
No, I think I covered everything.
Okay. So, thank you, Shane, so much for digging up all this information. We're going to continue to follow, especially the North American fires, because there are just so many. And what you think is going on? Why do you think water is attracting these fires? Let us know in the comments. I know we have a lot of very smart viewers here. And yes, our book, Sound the Alarm, is available, www.themauibook.com. And we go into the fires in Maui as well as some of the other ones. So all the information is there. And we'll also link a video that breaks down the explanation for the damage, because I know I get a lot of questions, and it's just hard for me to bring it up consistently. So please watch one of those. We'll put the one about the blue items and like metal and things like that, and then we'll also put Robert's video where he explains the trees, and how unusual it is by the trees and brush burning the way they have been. So I think that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.